another major Israeli propaganda story continues to fall apart, and that is this allegation that Hamas used rape as a tool of war. There was a big New York Times investigation on that. We covered it last week.
Yeah, I don't want to dwell too much on this because we've done it so much. But.
Well, I recommend for people who haven't seen it, check out the story that Max did at the Grayzone.com. Screams without proof, questions for New York Times about shoddy Hamas rape report. I helped out a little bit with this, but again, this was Max's work, and it's devastating in taking apart that article that was in the New York Times alleging Hamas sexual violence on October 7th. And Max, you submitted questions to the New York Times. Of course, we've received no answers. No one, as I predicted, has stepped forward to defend the New York Times report in the aftermath of your debunking, because it's so devastating. The contradictory claims of the purported witnesses, the ridiculous allegations that the New York Times printed, even though there's no forensic evidence to support them. And you think with claims of like a severed breast and severed heads, there'd be at least one piece of forensic evidence that could support this. But of course, there's zero. And that's why I think this story is going to fade from public views, because it's so ridiculous. It's an egregious case of journalistic malpractice. You exposed it, and I guarantee we will not be seeing any response from Jeffrey Gettleman, the author of this piece at the Times, or anybody else, because this piece they did was indefensible, as confirmed by the family of Gal Abdouche, who is the featured victim in this story. The New York Times tried to portray her as a rape victim. Her own family called out the New York Times for exploiting them and for making a claim that is also undermined by all the available evidence. So the silence in response to your debunking of the story is deafening.
Yeah. I added some updates to my debunking and clarification, and they're on Twitter. I'll add it to the piece. And I think they're basically what is happening now is, instead of the Israeli investigation expanding, the counter investigation is expanding with lots of citizen journalists rising to the fore. And we're going to see more debunking of this article and of the Israeli government's attempt to put forward a propaganda construct without any evidence in order to justify its genocide in Gaza. There's a great piece, by the way, Consortium News by our friend Gareth Porter on this very issue. Asa Winstanley's doing good work on this at Electronic Intifada. Mondo Weiss has some group called the Short String that's doing a lot on it. And I'll shout out anyone because they've dismantled this from top to bottom. And we also have to keep in mind that this is also designed to take up our time and energy, so we're not focusing on the crimes Israel's committing in the Gaza Strip. I didn't have this in our initial material, but I want to highlight it if I can find it, because it really shows the irony of these allegations. Yeah, here we go. Because Palestinians on camera are suffering sexual humiliation. Palestinian men are being stripped, dragged away in trucks, blindfolded in the cold. That is a form of humiliation. And now we also have in Nuseirat, a Palestinian woman declaring Israeli soldiers undressed us completely naked, including my 14-year-old girl, gathered us in a hole and burned our underwear in front of our eyes. Soldiers released us naked and shouted at us, "Come on, move, you animals." And then they stole her money. She said they stole 10,000 Israeli shekels worth of gold. And they took the young children naked. And they threw us gathered in a hole and started shooting above our heads. Then they burned the structures around us. They did the unthinkable with us. They spared nothing. Stole gold, money, phones, our underwear in front of us. They burned. They burned your underwear? Yes. In front of our eyes, in front of our eyes. My sons and daughters are laying here on the street. Nothing, not even a cover. No clothes, not a thing. And they released them naked. Then they said, "Come on, get out, you animals." So I hope, Jake Tapper will be reporting on this. No, he won't, because you know what? He sees a brown lady with hijab and just thinks of her as, doesn't identify with her. He probably thinks she's a liar.
Yeah. At this point, and you've made this point, Max, the only thing that can get you to believe these claims of Hamas sexual violence put up by the New York Times and others, the only thing that can make you believe that at this point, based on given the fact that all the claims do not add up, all the witnesses are contradictory, they've changed their stories, the only thing that this can be based on is a subconscious or conscious racism and a stereotype of Arab and Muslim men, this belief that they're savage barbarians who want to rape white European women. That's the only thing that can sustain that narrative now.
Yeah, wasn't Peter Beinart like using the word savage to refer to Hamas's actions on October 7th? It's like,
yeah, if you read his pieces, yeah. Sorry, I'm sorry to interrupt. If you read his pieces, it's Hamas was savage, Hamas was barbaric, and this is a critic of Israel. It's never Israel that's savage and barbaric, and so yeah, there is this deeply ingrained racism in even people who are critical of Israel. So imagine those who are stenographers for Israel. That's the only thing that can be. And of course, Peter Beinart promoted that stupid New York Times story because people, despite their best intentions, have subconscious racism. And this is a good opportunity for them to confront that, given how ridiculous this story is and how it continues to fall apart.